And hello, everybody. It's Tom Chenault, and it is the Legacy Leadership Radio Show here in Niwot, Colorado. I am live without Adrian. He is on assignment in Sayulita, Mexico, having the time of his life with his family and his other in laws that he likes better than me because he took them with him, which was adorable. And here we are in the show. It is going to be unbelievable. I found this guy and I fell in love with him. He was on a live with Ken Walls, who is a story unto himself, a fellow sober guy. So I love Ken Walls. He and I went through some crazy stuff with a guy named Rami, and just love him with all of my heart. And so I saw Doug Wing on the show. And I thought, holy mackerel, who is this guy? So I started doing some due diligence into him, and the guy can flat out sell. And everybody in network marketing is trying to figure out a trick, and the trick is flat out selling. So I thought I would track him down and get him to come on the show. So he sends me his books, and he's written books like crazy. And all of a sudden, I'm opening them up, and the foreword is written by a guy who I've tried to have on the show 1,000 times in the past. Doesn't want anything to do with me, named Jeffrey Gitomer. And this guy is amazing. He is like a legend he's like Seth Godin, a legend who wants nothing to do with Tom Chenault, which is okay with me. And Mark Victor Hansen, who I love with all my heart, because Mark Victor Hansen is the same guy when you're not looking, when he's not on the camera or he's not on the stage. He is an unbelievable human being. So the common denominator was Mark Victor Hansen, Jeffrey Gitomer, and Ken Walls. I mean, it's a trifecta. So I said I had to have him on the show. We're going to just talk sales. We're going to talk about how this guy ended up involved with the number one ladder company on the planet and wrote books about it. The first one was called Giant Success. Incredible. He just told me Gitomer told him to write it. It's a smash hit. And now he's just talking about coming from the heart and giving and relationships, which you know I'm all about. Longest introduction in the history of the world. We need to go to a commercial break right now. That's a lie. We're ready to go. How are you, Doug Wing? Sorry I talk so much.
Good. Can you hear me? I think
you're great.
I think my picture froze a little bit, but
yeah, I think it did too. So
not sure what's going on, but everybody can see my smiling face, I guess.
Up there on the top, maybe there's a refresh button where you kind of just reload your page a little bit, but I don't know. I can't help you, but I can see you, and you're a handsome man.
Well, thank you. It's an honor to be on your show. I know we've been talking about doing this for a while, and you're very busy, and you obviously have a successful podcast. So I'm so grateful to be on this show with you.
And another thing that we're on is terrestrial radio. So another thing that's really good about what this show is all about is AM radio stations all over the country are picking up the show, up to 1,000 of them. And that's pretty exciting, because what does that mean? It means that people can listen to you in their cars, and that will happen on Saturday. So we don't need your face on it. If we never get your face back, we're okay, because they're going to listen to you on the radio, and that'll be a good thing. So talk to me. Who the heck are you, and how did this all happen? And you're retired and decided to re-give your life to the world and giving back, and everything about you I love. So let's go.
Yeah, I was born in Germany, and my dad was in Germany. He was in the military, and then he found my mother there, and they got married, and then he worked for an insurance company in the United States, and they realized he spoke German, and so we moved back to Germany. And I had an older brother, and later we moved back to, what happened is my dad actually found the Little Giant Ladder in Germany. He was a very successful salesman in insurance, and one day he had a business partner there in Germany, and he went and saw the original Little Giant Ladder, which was a very small company. It wasn't called Little Giant then, but it was a company called Waku. And he met the inventor of this ladder, and he went to my dad and he said, "Hey, you got to see this ladder. This is incredible." My dad's like, "Richard, we are selling insurance. I don't want to see this ladder." He continued to just, just bother my dad about it. Finally, my dad saw the ladder, and the rest is kind of history. They became close friends, the inventor of this ladder. And my dad said, hey, let me sell these in America. I know I can sell these ladders. And they did a licensing agreement, and my dad ordered his first container and started selling them. And so that's kind of how the ladder business started. I was actually
did your dad rename it, or did you rename it from Wiku to the Little Giant? Because that's brilliant too.
No, that was my dad. Yeah, he's the one that called it the Little Giant. And I always tell people the real Little Giant was my dad. He was only 5'7", but he was incredible. He had so much confidence, and he was just a goer, a doer. He was incredible. But so what happened was we started selling ladders, and I was actually 10 years old when I started working for my dad. My brother was 12, and the only company I've ever worked for, the only boss I ever had. And he was just a great mentor. I always tell people, what I realized is my dad didn't build ladders or sell ladders. He built people, and then the people helped him build the company. And he was incredible with people. He loved his employees. They knew he loved them. He treated them just like his family. And he always said, my employees carry me to the top of the mountain every day. So he was just unbelievable with people. There's just so many great stories of him and how he treated people and the people that he hired. He took a lot of chances on people who just got out of prison and things like that, and saw potential in them. He had the ability to see the person not in the current state they were in, but as to what they could become. And then he would mentor those people and build them and help them gain confidence. And it was incredible to watch him do this.
So Michelle told me that you might need to go back out again and come back in if it's bothering you that you aren't on camera. So
it's not bothering me, but if you want me to, I can, but I'm fine with it.
No, you're okay. So that's, as long as you're happy, I'm happy, because
you can see my face. I'm smiling always.
Yeah, you look great. Okay, so I'm happy. We're good. So all right, so stay put and let's keep talking. So sales.
Mm-hmm.
What does sales mean to you? I mean, there's a stereotype out there that people think you got to talk to people that don't want to talk to you. You're all about building relationships, finding out what they want to buy, and then coming back to them and selling them what they said they wanted to buy. And if they told you they didn't want to buy something, you don't waste your time until they're ready to buy, right?
Exactly. Yeah. I always talk about my last 5 years of Little Giant. We had a great opportunity to sell. And actually, we didn't even make this product, but I was at a trade show with the CEO of our company, and we had 2 or 3 guys that came up from different cable companies, and they were safety officers, and they worked together, the cable companies, even though they were competitors, they worked together on reducing accidents and increasing safety. So we had a guy there from Charter, we had a guy from Comcast, and another gentleman from Cox that came up, and they said, hey, our guys, our number one problem with ladders is they're too heavy. Our guys are dropping them. They're hitting into buildings. They're hitting cars with them. They're hurting their shoulders, their backs, and they're 100-pound ladders. We need a ladder that's 28 feet long, and we want it to be 50 pounds. So we want to cut 50% of the weight, having the same rating on a ladder. Can you do it? And our CEO at the time looks at these guys and says, we can do it. We'll get back to you. Takes their cards and they walk off. And I said, are you crazy? We don't even make this ladder. And he goes, we're going to build it. They want it. They need it. And so within about 5 months, we produced this product and tested it. And we called these guys back and said, hey, we've got these ladders now. And they were blown away. And they said, well, we have a meeting in about a month. Can you guys ship out some ladders and come to this meeting and show us the ladder? And what we found out at this meeting is they went to all these other ladder companies and asked for this product years before us. And the company said, yes, we'll do it. And they just flat out lied to them and didn't do it. And so first of all, they thought we were going to do the same thing to them, but instantly we had gained their trust because we built this product. We went to this meeting, we showed them the ladder, they were blown away. And in the beginning, they said, hey, we're just going to buy these ladders through attrition. But what happened is we produced about 20 ladders for them. We sent them to the different companies. And when their tech started using these products, they were only supposed to test them for like 2 weeks. But what happened is the guys loved the ladders so much. And then when the next guy went to get the ladder, they almost got in fights over these ladders because they were so light and so good. And they just went and ended up replacing all of their ladders because they reduced their injuries by so much that it actually saved them money by buying all of these ladders. And so in the last 5 years of my career at Little Giant, we sold over $150 million worth of ladders and took over the whole cable market. Now, the thing about it is that number one, we listened, and I always tell people, listen to the customer. And we listened, we built what they wanted, and we took over the entire market. And we built relationships. They trusted us. And so every time they needed another ladder, whether it's a step ladder or a ladder to get up to attics, guess who they called to this meeting? They only called Little Giant. And so we took over all of their business. And it was funny because I met the CEO of Warner Ladder, who was at that time the largest ladder company in the world. And he walked up and he said, "Man, Doug, you didn't just take part of the market, you took the whole thing." And I just smiled at him, and he says, "Well, we're going to get it back." And they never did, because they lied in the first place, and we, did what they wanted us to do. So that story was amazing. Listen to the customer, build what they want, build the relationships. We got all the business, and we still have it to this day. Every time I'm driving down the road and I see a Cox or Comcast truck and those bright high-vis green ladders are on there, I go, I know who sold those ladders to these guys. It was me. And it's really cool to see to see those ladders to this day.
That is so cool. And I was a stockbroker for many years in my life, and I sold invisible products. And I finally drank myself out of the stock business and couldn't get a job. So I became a commercial painter. So we were painting all these apartments all over Colorado. We were the top repaint company. And to this day, as I drive down highways, I still see buildings I paint, and it's a warm, fuzzy feeling for me, just like you see in those ladders. And that's really cool, sir.
Yeah, it's incredible. I mean, just the fact that we reduced injuries to our missions,
Sure.
our statement for Little Giant was preventing injuries and saving lives. And people don't realize one person in the US falls off a ladder every day and dies. And so we really were big into safety at Little Giant, and it really paid off for us.
Wow. What did you say? One person every day?
Every day falls and dies as a result of off a ladder. Yeah.
So you're saying only 365 people a year die all over the United States?
Yeah, but there's a lot more other injuries where people become, paraplegics or
I
quadriplegics.
would have thought it was much higher than that. I learned something today. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
But you're right. You're saving lives. You're helping people. So here's a guy that rises through the ranks, takes it up to $150 million in sales, selling ladders. How on earth did you go from then? Why'd you retire?
Well, I worked there for 47 years. So I was 55 when I retired. I flew over 2 million miles on Delta Airlines and traveled everywhere. And I did enjoy what I did, but my brother and I were the majority owners of the company at that time because my father had passed away. And actually the cable business was 150 million. The company was well over 300 million at that time, but we were, the cable business was just 150 million that we were doing. But my brother and I got to the point where we knew that eventually we were going to sell the company because we both have sons who are of the millennial generation, and they really didn't have the desire to take over the business or really just
Sure.
I just don't think they had the experience to do it. And so we made the decision that eventually we were going to sell the business. And so we took it from really when my father had it. I remember doing $1 million a year in sales, and then eventually we were up to 400 employees and right around that $300 million mark. And so eventually we knew we were going to sell it because there was just no other successor, I guess, to take the business.
So you sold it for a lot of money, obviously, and you end up sitting there at home with all this dough, all these cars, living life large, and you decided, holy mackerel, I need to make more of a contribution again, and I need to reinvent myself one more time. And you did that. And where I was going with this whole thing is you decided to train leadership, sales, relationships, and basically love to the world, right?
Yeah, well, we did one other thing too. I went through a divorce several years ago and lost a lot of my retirement and savings, and And I ended up starting I ended up starting with to buy properties, multi-level, multifamily housing properties, and got up to about 10 or 11, 12 properties. And a friend of mine had another, he wasn't doing the same thing I was doing. And so he told me years ago, hey, we're going to be partners someday. And after I sold Little Giant, then we started another company. And so now we have a bigger company, and all we do is rent apartments to people. But that's something I do on the side. And my partner and his other, I have two partners that run that company. But yes, after I sold the company, then I started doing some more speaking and, the book writing. I mean, I had no idea I was ever going to write books. And during COVID, Jeffrey Gitomer had a daily little mini podcast that he would get on every day for about 15 minutes. And sometimes I would be on the show with him, and he had a mastermind. And I went down to North Carolina one time with him for this mastermind, and was telling him stories about my dad and Little Giant and the company. And he says, if you write a book, you've got to write a book about this. People need to hear this. And he said, if you write this book, it will be a best-selling book. And I laughed at him. And he got a little bit fired up and said, write this book, I promise you. And so he helped me get it started. And it took a while. COVID was hard. It was difficult. But eventually the book came out, and he was correct. It turned into a #1 best-selling book. And I was shocked because I was not the best of students in school. And so that first book came out, giant success.
That's this one, right?
That's it right there. And
right.
Jeffrey wrote the foreword too. And then after that book, I met Mark Victor Hansen, who's one of the, I guess, most prolific authors.
Well, he's only sold 500 million books. That's a number.
Yeah, and so we had dinner. It was me and Ken Walls and Mark Victor Hansen. And I told him some stories, and he said, this is incredible. I'd like to write more books with you. And I'm thinking, what kind of books are we going to write together? And he said, you have so many stories. We can take your stories. We can fictionalize these books. And the first book is going to be called The Giver, and it will be a bestseller. And I kind of laughed at him that night as well. And we did it. And
I can't get this thing right. Sorry.
Yeah, you can see it. And we did it. And the book hit #1 again. And I was really surprised. And then we decided to do it again. And it had more stories. And so we came out with another one with Mark Victor Hansen, Giving Hearts. And these books are all about my life and my family and my father and I, and the things that we did together in business and relationships. But they're fictionalized with different names, but the stories are real.
How cool is that? And driving everything in sales and everything else is stories, in your opinion, correct?
Yes, for sure.
And so taking that a little farther, you sat down, you started writing books. And at the end of the day, what's your life look like? I mean, I saw you in your garage. I know how many cars, I don't know how many cars you've got, but I know you got a ton of cars. That's a passion of yours. What's your life look like today?
Well, the cars and the stuff are not the important things in life, really. It's the relationships that we have with people. And my wife and I spend a lot of time serving, in our church and helping people. I've had people come to me and say, oh, why don't you go on the speaking tour? You could speak to Fortune 500, speak to Fortune 100 companies, and you could, make a lot of money doing this. And I said, well, I've already traveled a lot through the world and done a lot of neat things like that. But I have done some speaking, but really the thing I like to do is speak mostly to church groups, mostly youth, or to schools, where I share my experiences with the kids. And I love it. They just really eat this stuff up. And if I can help some of these young people, figure out what they want to do in life and have a good life and enjoy what they're doing, and know that they can be successful, that's really what I'd like to do, and spend time helping others. Yeah, I've had a great life. I had like I said, I had one of the best mentors in the world, and he happened to be my dad, and he was just one of the nicest guys in the world, and loved people. And there's some great stories in these books about
really are
about some of the things that he did.
So the kids, I'm not sure it's just the kids. I think it's everybody. This whole problem called failure to launch and actually step into the pond. They read all the books, but nobody ever jumps in the water. How do we get these people to take that step and really, they read all three of these books, they got a handle on what they're supposed to do, but the kids especially, they see, I mean, I know for a fact they drive through the neighborhoods, they see these people with these big houses, they see things that they think they want out of their life, and they can't see how to get there from here. They certainly might not be able to get that education that they feel might take that down or come up with that big internet trick. But somebody that masters sales is going to make the money. How do we get that across to them? That sales is something that literally everybody can do. And it is a muscle you have to develop. And finding guys like you to mentor them and listen to is truly the ticket, right or wrong?
No, I think you're right. I mean, I think everybody's in sales. Doctors, I mean, if a doctor's terrible with people, and he doesn't relate to people and treat people well, everybody's in sales. You're either selling yourself or you're selling a product or service. And so I like to, kids will say, how did you know what to do in life? And I always, as I've gone around and traveled, I've found other salesmen that I've worked with from like distributors and things. And some of those guys didn't like what they were doing. And so the first thing I always, and if you don't like what you're doing, people can tell. So I always tell the young people, find out what you really love to do, your passion. What is it that you like to do? Learn everything you can about that, and then do it well. Do it better than anybody else, and really have a desire to take care of people and develop relationships with people. And if you can do that, you'll be successful.
I train something called the BLTSs, and like a bacon, lettuce, and tomato sandwich. And I just tell people if they can live there, where anybody in your life, if they feel like they belong in your tribe, that's the B. If they feel like you love them, that's the L. If they feel like they can trust you, that's the T. And if they feel like they're safe with you, they're going to do anything with you. They're going to buy the ladder, or they're going to buy whatever it is you got for sale. But if any one of those things are missing, they're just going to phone it in. And they may give you a tiny taste just to get rid of you. But what I'm looking to do, and I know you're looking to do, is develop those relationships deep enough that those people feel the BLTS, because they know at that point you can move mountains. And that's the leadership you talked about. Teaching people, it's all about people. It's all about loving like crazy, then loving more, fire in your brain, higher in your heart, right?
Exactly. Yeah. In fact, Michelle put up a little quote that's on there that is actually on the little giant building.
Yeah.
Basically saying, if you concentrate on just building a business and not the man or people, you're not going to achieve. But if you concentrate on building a man or the woman that works for you or the people, you achieve both. And so that's really, we're in the people business. Everybody's in the people business. And I'm trying to think of if I could just share a quick story.
Hit it.
About my dad. So I interviewed about 50 people for Giant Success, and I found out things that I didn't know about my dad. And one thing I love about my dad is he helped a lot of people, but he did it in secret. He never told anybody about it. And so I was interviewing a guy named Steve Curtis, who worked for us. He was later on in life, he worked for us. I'd say he's probably in his 40s, mid 40s. And I really didn't know how he came to work at Little Giant. But when I was interviewing him, his wife sat there with him, and she said, "Steve, tell him about that time that Hal Wing came to visit you at the hospital." And he was like, "Yeah, your dad came to visit me at the hospital." And she goes, "No, let me tell the story." So she tells the story about, she said Steve was working in a manufacturing facility, was working on this big machine, and something went wrong with this machine, and it exploded while he was standing there in front of it. And it put shrapnel all throughout his body, pieces of shrapnel. And one of the bigger pieces of shrapnel came down and almost severed his leg off right below the knee. And they rushed him to the hospital, and he was in intensive care. He was in shock. And his wife, Vicky, says, We were in the emergency room, and I look up, and there's your dad, Hal Wing. She goes, I don't know how he knew that this had happened, but there's your dad in the hospital. And she goes, Hal, how did you get in here? And he goes, oh, that was easy. I just told him that Steve was my brother. And so she says, your dad comes in, and they're trying to get Steve stabilized, and they're not even worried about his leg or anything like that. They're just trying to get him out of shock and then treat his wounds. And she goes, your dad disappears for a little bit, and he comes back in a few minutes later, and Steve's just covered with soot. And she goes, your dad gently washes his face and his arms and tells him, Steve, when you get out of here, you're going to work for me. And she says, your dad leaves. And so anyway, his leg had to be amputated right below the knee. He comes home, and he's in a wheelchair. And Vicky says, the second we walk into our house and I'm pushing Steve in through the house, she goes, once again, the phone rings. We don't know who it is. I answer the phone, and it's your dad, Hal Wing. She goes, now, how did he know that we were coming home that day? And he said, is Steve there? Let me talk to him. He gets on the phone with Steve and says, are you ready to come to work for me? And Steve says, Hal, I can't come to work for you. My leg was amputated right below the knee. And so I'm just going to have to go on disability. And I won't be able to work. And my dad said to him, Steve, can you talk to people on the phone? And he goes, well, I guess I could. And he goes, well, then you have a job with me. I'll see you when you're ready. Just come in and get a job. And so Steve comes to work, and he actually worked for our company till the day he retired. And so there's stories like this where my dad, goes and finds out about these people that needed a job, that needed kind of a helping hand up, and gave them an opportunity. And that's what my dad always said, is I give people opportunities, and then if they want to take it, that's up to them. But there's just so many stories like this where he just was building people, and these people were so loyal to him because of his love for them.
So I'm sitting I watch the news on a very minimal basis, and I see that people are so scared. They don't know what's going on. I was supposed to be at a big event in Los Angeles this weekend, largely Hispanic audience. And those people aren't going to that event because they're afraid to leave their houses, because they don't know who's going to arrest them for no reason. And it's just horrible out there. And you can take that all over the world. I got a good friend that lived in Tehran, still lives there. He had to relocate himself 1,000 miles away because of the turmoil going on there. Unbelievable guy. Lots of friends in the Ukraine, lots of friends over in Israel. These people are freaked out because their governments just keep fighting with one another. Figuring out, just like your friend with absolutely no ability for mobility, a way to make some money while you're waiting for sanity to return, if it ever does, is what I'm completely obsessed with doing. And I use the network marketing model because I know those people can go to work from this second on. They can be in business in an hour if they know somebody in the business that will train them, and take it from that point to give those people the opportunity to get their lives back with hard work and training from a guy like you. So the reason I just threw that rant out was, how do people find somebody like you in order to get trained? Do you do any kind of trainings out there? Or are you doing any kind of leadership, or is it just on a case-by-case basis?
Yes, I do that. And you can go to dougwing.com, and there's a place where you can contact me if you want me to do any, come to speak to your company or any private business consulting or things like that. But yeah, that's how to get a hold of me, is through dougwing.com. And there's a place where you can go, and it shows you, the different things that I offer as well. So.
And how about, other than your books, like The Magic of Thinking Big, or Think and Grow Rich, or Rich Dad, Poor Dad, what really drives you literature-wise to get you in it? The Bible, what gets you there from here that you can just put the afterburners on every morning for no reason? You don't need the money. You just want it to make a difference. What pops your eyes open at 2:00 in the morning, and where could somebody go to get the same headspace you've got? Where's it at? What do you read? What do you do? How do you motivate yourself?
One of my favorite books, actually, even though my camera's not working right now and I'm frozen, but one of my favorite books was a book that Jeffrey Gitomer wrote. He wrote a lot of sales training books, but my favorite book he ever wrote was called The Little Gold Book of Yes Attitude. And that book is something that I look at and read weekly, and sometimes daily, because it is just packed with, attitude. That's the other thing that I learned from my dad. He had such a good attitude. And one time when my dad was selling insurance, he told this story that was incredible. He's being trained by this older gentleman, and they have an appointment. My dad's, shadowing this salesman. And they go to an appointment to a guy's house, and this older gentleman says, "Hey, we have an appointment with you for insurance." And the guy said, "You're a liar. I don't have an appointment with you. Get the heck off my porch. I don't know what you're talking about." And he just said, "You get out of here." And he just told him off. And here my dad's a brand new salesman. And he said this older gentleman wasn't even fazed by it. And my dad was like, "Man, I can't believe this guy just told you off. And this just can ruin your day." And the guy looked at my dad and he goes, "Obviously, this guy has a problem. Maybe he just found out his wife is leaving him. Maybe one of his kids is sick. Maybe he just lost his job." And he goes, "Let's go find somebody who doesn't have a problem." And that was it. He just blew it right off, and they went and tried to find other people. So this guy had just a phenomenal attitude. And I think that if you can develop a positive attitude throughout your life, and when the bad times come, because they're going to come for everybody, and the hard days and the rejections come, if you can develop an attitude of, "Hey, you know what? That guy's got a problem. Let's go find somebody else." At Little Giant, we tried to hire when we could for attitude, and we would try to train the rest, because what we found out is if somebody has a poor attitude, it's hard to change them, and then it will also affect the other employees that you have. And so that's another thing I talk to younger people about is, work on your attitude, because if you have a good attitude and a positive attitude, and you'll do more than the other person, you're going to go far. You're going to go very far, because right now something happened after COVID. I don't know what it is, but it's so hard to find good people. Nobody wants to work, and everybody's really got kind of a poor attitude. And so if you can just develop a good attitude, the positive attitude, you'll be that much further ahead of other people.
And work ethic. I mean,
yes.
Gee, many Christmas. You talk to these people and you would think there's 168 hours in a week. So if you take 40 out of that, if you just work a full-time job, you've got 128 hours to do what you're going to do. But getting people to step on the gas pedal and rip it 24/7, it's unbelievably hard to find those people. And I just believe that they don't think the juice is worth the squeeze. And I think it's on us to let those people understand, vision board or whatever else, that the way to get there from here is probably hard work and doing what no one else wants to do for a while, so you can do what you want to for the rest of your life, right?
Exactly. People don't, if in the back of Giant Success, there's some really cool quotes, but my dad always used, one that he'd always say was, "The harder I work, the luckier I get." People don't realize, people would see my dad when he was in his late, 50s, 60s, and they would see how successful he was. But when I was in junior high and high school, my dad was gone over 300 days a year, and he was sleeping in a station wagon on top of a foam pad, on top of ladders. He could only stay in a hotel about every third or fourth night. So he would get up, go to a gas station, brush his teeth, shave in the restroom, and go to work. And we did not see our dad for over 300 days a year. But you know what? He busted his rear end, and he paid the price and did what he had to do to become a success. And people don't see that. They just go, "Oh, that guy was so lucky. He had over 60 cars. He had all these houses." But there's a story my dad tells in the very beginning. He had to
I love that you're talking about your dad. I just wish my son would talk about me like this. Holy mackerel. Keep going.
There's a great story about my dad. He tells, in the very beginning, he said, "I had to sell a certain amount of ladders, a number of ladders every day." And he goes, whether it was 10 or 20 or 30, or I was out of business. And he said, one day I had to sell one more ladder, and it was late at night. And he said, somebody gave me a referral. I went over to this guy's house, And he goes, the guy had one arm, and you've seen the little giant, how you have to manipulate it and pull out all the tabs and move it. And the guy looked at him and he said, I only have one arm. If you can convince me that with one arm I can use this ladder, you have a sale. So my dad says, I was down on the ground. I put one hand behind my back. And he goes, I was using my knees, my chin, everything I had. And I was giving it everything I had to show this guy he could do it. And he goes, I was wrestling with the ladder. And he said, I convinced the guy, I sold one more ladder and I could go home that night. And I'm like, dang, my dad was a great salesman, right? I mean, to sell a guy with one arm, a little giant. Yeah.
Holy mackerel. So as you go on, you've obviously done okay. You're out there. What's next for you? How you're going to continue to church? Obviously, you've got great faith because your favorite place is to talk to people and train people is in your faith and in your church. What's it look like for the rest of your life? How do you see that showing up?
Well, Mark Victor Hansen wants me to do one more book, but I don't know if he wants me to write a biography about my own life. I've got the one with my dad, and then I've got my 2 other books, but I may do that at some point. But next year in the spring, my wife and I will be going for a year on a church mission, and we don't know where we're going to go yet, but we're pretty excited about that. So we love serving, we love giving, we love helping, and we'll see where it goes from there. But we're just busy trying to do good things and be good people and be good neighbors and friends. And I met a guy about 4 or 5 months ago, and he came to one of my presentations. I was speaking to a company here in Arizona, and he came up to me afterwards and he said, why are you so happy? And he says, I think it's your faith. And he's right, but that's a big part of my life. Is I've been on 2 missions for my church. One when I was 19, and I will tell people say, what helped you to become a good salesman? And I said, well, when you go on a mission for a church and you have to go door to door and talk to people about religion for 2 years, knocking on doors, I go, that really helped me to know how to, it opened me up. First of all, I was 19 years old, and it helped me to learn how to deal with people and with rejection. And that was one thing that really helped me. I think more than what I realize is that mission to the church, going door to door and talking to people about religion, was something that really helped me get out of my shell and learn how to develop relationships with people.
The interesting thing about that, and I am a mess. I mean, I'm a recovering alcoholic. I'm probably I have no idea what I am, but a company needed me to go all over Asia and all over Malaysia and all that jazz. So they knew that I am not very smart. They knew I am a doddering fool, and they know that I'm old. So they assigned a guy to me to be my guide that lived over in Utah by the name of, I can't remember his name. That's how good a guy I am. Mike Brosnan. And Mike Brosnan's job was to make sure Tom Chenault didn't die on this trip. But the reason I'm telling you this is because his real job, above and all, he had a big business and crazy successful guy, he was a Mormon bishop, a bishop in the Mormon church. And as a result, his job, while he was on that flight, was to handle all these calls all over the world of people needing a food stamp to eat that night, to get their tire fixed because they were on the side of the road. So this guy's trying to manage a whack job like me. And I mean, like abusing the heck out of him till I heard who he really was as a human, because he was such a good person. I couldn't believe it. And he just takes care of people. And what it feels like to me is that's how you want to be when you grow up.
Oh yeah, but don't be so hard on yourself. I can tell you're a great person, and we're all on different levels. We're all trying to become better, right? To do better and to be better. And there's always someone to help. I really believe that my father went around every day with the idea of who can I help today? Well, that guy that I was telling you about that lost his leg and that came to work for him, after he worked on the phones, he told me, he said, I was kind of your dad's little helper, helping people. And he said, the first time I helped your dad, I get a phone call from your dad, and he said, Steve, meet me at this address. They go to the address. My dad meets him there in his car. And he said, Steve, look at this guy's roof. He needs a new roof, and I'd like to put a new roof on his house. I want you to knock on his door, and I don't want you to tell him who I am, but I want you to tell him that someone is going to replace his roof. Goodbye. Take care of this. So my dad drives off, and Steve's like, I've never done this before. He rings the guy's doorbell. Guy comes to the door, and he goes, yeah, what do you want? And he's like, well, I can't tell you who it is, but someone wants to replace your roof for you. And the guy's like, is this a joke? And he goes, no, somebody wants to put a new roof on your house. Are you okay with that? And the guy goes, yeah, I'm okay with it. So he says, okay, well, you want the same color shingles? Yes. Okay.
Jeez.
All right, we're going to do it. So he says, and then he says, like, next week, he says, Steve, meet me at this house. And so he meets him at this house, and he says, look at this guy's car. He says, he needs new tires. He says, I want you to ring his doorbell, and I want you to tell him that someone, not me, is going to replace his tires for him. The same thing. The guy's like, are you crazy? Is this a candid camera? What is this? And so he says, I went on doing all of these things for your dad secretly. And when my father passed away, and we were at the funeral home, and there was a line, and we were greeting people, this little old lady, I kid you not, walked up, and she says, I was homeless, and your dad bought me a house.
Gee, many Christmas.
We didn't know any of these things. I mean, he did it all in secret. So he went around just helping people and blessing people. And he was just such a great example. It was unreal. It was just unbelievable.
Did you ever see the movie Big Fish?
No, I haven't seen it.
You have to go get it. So the movie is so crazy because it's about your dad. Except this guy, his dad, would come home and say stories like, I met this guy with 3 heads, and I helped him get a hat for each head that he had. And the kid's going, no way. And then another person that was 11 feet tall. And finally, the guy dies, the dad. And the kids go to the funeral, and here comes the guy with 3 heads and the 11-foot tall guy. And they're all there just crying over the dad. All those stories that were completely unbelievable ended up being true. And it was the most beautiful movie because we never know about, our mom and dad. And we never know about people. And they talk about it all the time. So all of you should go watch Big Fish. But I also want you to buy this book called Giant Success. I really want you to buy this book. I mean, this guy is the real deal. Ken Walls and Mark Victor Hansen they had a lot of influence on this guy, and he wrote these other 2 books after that. You can see those stickers on there that are both Amazon bestseller stickers. This guy is the real deal. You should know him. And there's a guy out there named Carl DeVere that just I saw him pop up, and I was thinking about him as you were talking, because that guy that goes out and just helps everybody when nobody's looking is a little bit like this guy that's watching the show right now called Carl DeVere. He just is really, really good at being that guy when nobody's watching, like your dad. So everybody, next week we've got Louis Ariaza on here, who is just a machine in network marketing, in training, in spirituality, in family, in the whole shooting match. So the absolute progression continues. I love you so much, Doug Wing. Tell Jeffrey Gitomer to come on my show. Tell Mark Victor Hansen and Ken Walls I love them. And you have the best day ever, sir.
Yes, thank you so much. I'm sorry about my camera, but you can still see my face. But just go out and try to help someone today. And you know what? If you have that attitude, you will run into someone that
wait a minute. I forgot. Our sponsor for this show is a company called NowSight. And if you go to swag, put it in up, Michelle, swag.contactmapping, swag.contactmapping.com. You can buy these overpriced sweatshirts, which are phenomenal, and shirts. And this one's Love Like Crazy, Then Love More. It's pink. You can get any color you want. I don't even know what the hell I'm doing here. Michelle normally does all this.
You're doing great.
We're going to send you one. So Michelle's going to give you a site to go look at, and you just figure out which one you want. And I am telling you what, just send me a picture of you in it, because you exemplify what this shirt is all about. I love you, man. Thanks for coming on the show. My head wasn't even on the screen. The fabulous headless horseman. And I love you. And thank you, thank you, thank you. You made my day, sir.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
All right, great.